the sequel to The Shining. Now, I've been meaning to read this book for a long time, but I have this to say, okay? The True Knot, okay? The True Knot kind of suck. They're kind of cringe. They're kind of lame. I don't think that they are a real threat, okay? And it doesn't help that they all have these, what you might call them, hillbilly names, redneck names, right? Like Silent Sally and Crow Daddy and Two Testicles Bob. It doesn't work, right? Now, of course, what they do is scary. When they feed on somebody's steam, that's scary. But as a whole, the True Knot unfortunately suffers a great deal. They're a bit, in a sense, they're a bit one-dimensional. They don't stand out really, which is crazy to me, right? The fact that they are the villains of this book, and they have so much potential, and Stephen King doesn't really do anything with them. You know, with the exception of Rose the Hat, and maybe Crow Daddy to an extent, everybody else in the True Knot, they're cringe. They're cringe. And this is the point that I want to make. All the moments that we have with the other members of the True Knot, you know, they're a bit, they seem like they have mental issues. They seem like they're not fully developed, you know, mentally. You know, and they always have a scene with Rose the Hat, of course. They don't have any separate scenes. So when there is a scene with them, they always grovel at Rose's feet. They're these, you know, these groveling buffoons, right? So almost everything they have, all of their characteristics are detriments, right, to their personalities. I don't know what to say. They're not impressive. This is what I want to say. The True Knot are not impressive at all. At all. I mean, even Rose the Hat is not really impressive, right? She gets outmaneuvered, outmatched, overwhelmed by a little girl, right? It's a shame. You know, I would think that because, you know, those who go through the change to become a True Knot, you know, it's such a grotesque, violent, you know, event, this change, you would think that the changes would be multifaceted. What I mean by that is, it seems to me when you go through the change to become a True Knot, you gain, you know, some shining ability, you know, and then maybe you get some physical power when you feed steam, and that's about it. You would think that changing would boost all of your attributes, you know. These people seem dumb, okay? And I know they're not necessarily dumb because they have a lot of money, they're organized, but every individual, they seem kind of dumb. You know, rednecks, hillbillies. You know, I know they want to present themselves as these, you know, nomadic people, these gypsies, but these hippies, right? But they're lame. They're lame. You know, they're kind of quasi-vampires. They feed on the energy of steamheads, these people who have shining, right? And, you know, vampires, always, without question, should always be cool, okay? And the True Knot, unfortunately, they are not cool at all, right? And from what I understand, with, you know, with the exception of Andy, you know, Rattlesnake Andy, and maybe a couple of other newcomers, like most of the True Knot, they are at least 100 years old, and some of them are a couple of 100 years old, like Rose the Hat, and if I'm right, Grandpa Fink, or whatever his name is, he's at least 1,000 years old, right? So they should have that experience, that knowledge, that wisdom. They sort of behave like one-dimensional caricatures. It's a shame. It's a damn shame. Stephen King had a lot of potential here with The True Knot, and he kind of fails miserably. Okay? And, and let's move on, because this is another thing that I want to talk about. And, I've watched videos, reviews, analyses, theory videos, and ever since The Shining, I've always asked myself, like, to me, this is the most important question, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this, but can somebody tell me who the hell is Tony? Okay, who the hell is Tony? What the hell is Tony? Tony is scary to me. Okay, Tony is a mystery. He is way more scary than the True Knot, right? Ever since The Shining, I was, I'm looking at this guy with sketchy eyes. I don't trust this guy, right? And this is my theory or hypothesis when it comes to Tony. Okay, so apparently Tony, back in the day, was this little boy that lived in Danny Torrance's mouth. And that alone is kind of creepy. But these are my theories when it comes to Tony. Tony, number one, is, let's call it the physical embodiment of Danny's shining. So Danny's shining somehow was converted into a physical sentient form, which is Tony. That's kind of cool. I like that. But my second theory, which is more sinister, is that Tony is another one of these, let's call them ghosty people. And Tony is really clever, but because, all the other True Knot and all the other ghosts from The Shining, they want that Danny's ass. They want that ass. But Tony, he's smart. He's clever. He becomes a true parasite. He latches on to Danny, and he sucks him dry over the years. So Tony has a meal ticket in Danny for decades to come. That boy's smart, right? It seems to me like all the ghosts in The Shining are kind of dumb, right? Tony, he got that IQ. So that's about it when it comes to Tony. Tony has always been a sinister character to me because he is an unknown. He kind of helps our protagonists, but you don't really understand why. The protagonists, Danny and Abra, they just accept this guy like he's all good. I don't think so. Maybe Tony has ulterior motives, right? But unfortunately, yet again, this is not addressed. This is not expanded upon. This is not improved upon, just like with The True Knot. Stephen King had a good idea, and he put it on paper, and that's it, which is unfortunate, right? But I want to get to the main thing, which is, of course, Danny Torrance. Because, of course, if you've read, I think it's in the beginning or maybe in the end, that Stephen King, after writing The Shining, he has always wondered what happened to that kid, Danny Torrance, that escaped the Overlook Hotel, right? And here we have, what happened to him. But yet again, this is my problem. Danny Torrance in Dr. Sleep, and this is just my opinion, but he seems one-dimensional to me. He seems a bit lackluster, subpar, okay? And I don't mean to, bash alcoholics or recovering alcoholics or Alcoholics Anonymous, but it seems to me like in this book, Danny Torrance, his only struggle in life is not to drink. Okay, and of course, I'm not trying to say that this is a minor thing, but it seems to me like it's the only thing. You know, this dread that's looming over us is, oh, God forbid if Danny Torrance has a drink. And I'm just like, bro, move on. Like, it's not that serious, okay? You're looking at somebody that used to be, a seriously chronic alcoholic. Like, I was drinking until I was passing out. I was mixing everything, right? And I was a teenager, right? But I came out the other end, better than ever, because I view drinking as, something positive, right? And ever since then, it has been an improvement upon my life, When I need a drink, I need a drink. If I have to take 10 drinks or 50 drinks, that's that's all right. Doesn't bother me. I don't have any, negative or angry outbursts, I don't have any episodes, Drinking, let's call it your addiction. Your addiction can be a plus. It can be a bonus. It can be a positive influence in your life if you have the right mindset, right? Because back in the day, when I was way younger, I was drinking because I was angry, because I was depressed, and the drinking, enhanced all of that. And I had a few outbursts. But now, like, I drink and it enhances my life, way better, positively. Okay? And I didn't need any therapy. I didn't need, a 12-step program. Not to say that those things are bad. Of course not. But I didn't need any of those things, right? And this is, just my opinion, but I don't think that, abstaining completely and sobriety 100% is necessarily a good thing. If you have a craving, just have a drink, calm down, and it will be fine, right? It'll be fine. Although I enjoy what Stephen King does here with, alcoholism, right? And Danny's struggle to recover from this, poison, right? I wanted more from Danny Torrance. I wanted him to explore more avenues. I'm a bit underwhelmed that this is his entire character arc, his struggle with drinking. And then he becomes sober for 10, 12, 20 years. And, it doesn't seem like an accomplishment. It just seems something that happens in the background. And while I was reading this, as the reader, I was just like, bro, just take a drink, bro. Just take a drink, shut up, and move on with your life, right? It's not that serious, right? I wanted more, from Wendy. I wanted more about Jack Torrance. I wanted more from Dick Halloran, right? All of these characters are barely explored in this sequel. These characters are sort of haunting, Danny Torrance, and he barely scratches the surface when it comes to these topics. And here's another thing. This book, unfortunately, doesn't have any consequences, okay? If you've seen the movie went full dark. Characters die, at the end even Danny dies. The movie went full dark. In comparison, in this book, it's almost like happy-go-lucky. It's not even a bittersweet ending. It's just good at the end. We're all Gucci at the end. Nothing really bad happens to our characters, which is a bit. It's a downer, right? Right? Which, of course, again, it takes from the True Knot as a real threat. Because nothing really bad happens to any of our characters, it's a detriment to the True Knot. They are not a threat because nothing bad happens to our characters, right? And of course, all of this happens because Abra, being a brat, he challenges Rose the Hat. Abra taunts her, teases her, makes threats all the time. And because of her, now the True Knot are dead set on getting this child. And Abra, nobody scolds her. Nobody reprimands her. And there are absolutely no consequences. And I'm like, that's not right. There have to be a certain amount of consequences. Otherwise, what's the point? I'm not anticipating something. I'm not expecting anything dreadful to happen, because at the end of the day, it is all wrapped up in a nice bow, right? Characters should have been hurt. Characters should have been injured. Some characters should have died, right? Because of Abra, because she set all of these things into motion. She poured the gasoline on the fire. And because of her, the True Knot used all of their resources to find her, right? But she never once really, considers that because of her actions, the people that she loves may be in danger, right? And none of the adults, not even Danny, takes her to the side and just slaps some sense in her. It's like, bro, stop! You're a child. You don't know any better. Just because you're powerful as shit doesn't mean that you can do all of these things and not suffer the consequences, right? But of course, there are no consequences at the end, right? And to make matters even worse, at the end when they're battling Rose the Hat, and there's a bit of a struggle, guess what? The ghost of Jack Torrance pops up, boy, and he saves the day, boy. And I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this. Why? Why does this happen? Of course, it's for the sake of the plot, but I'm just like, when the ghost of Jack Torrance finally helps, Danny kill Rose the Hat, I'm just like, I don't feel anything. I suppose that Stephen King meant for this moment to be, a sort of deliverance for the readers, but I'm just like, right? It left me cold. Yet again, absolutely no consequences whatsoever, right? And again, to underline this, Danny has a plan to fight the True Knot, and he, let's just say, takes in this bad stuff that Abra's great-grandmother has, Momo. He takes that disease in, and he has terrible symptoms. It's like he's dying, right? You think that Danny's gonna die by the end because he took this disease in, and at the end, after he releases this disease and kills the True Knot, I mean, he is scot-free. There are absolutely no consequences for him having this illness inside of him. So what was the point? It is hype without a conclusion, right? It's jerking somebody off, but there is no climax. You can't just write about this for God knows how many pages and not deliver. Oh my God, Danny Torrance is gonna die. He has flies on his face. And then at the end of the day, he's back. He's healthy. Why? There should be consequences. Okay? And this is, let's call it a pet peeve, right? Because there's something going on that I don't really understand. Right? The ghosty people. So in the book The Shining, the Overlook Hotel, burned down to the ground. And there's nothing left. So some of the ghosty people follow little boy Danny Torrance all across the continent to Florida. And I'm just like, well, how does that work? What is the rule here? What's the logic here? Because I thought, because bad things happen to those people at the Overlook, they are now like almost shackled to that place. It doesn't matter if the building got burnt down, the bad things still happen there. So they still should be locked there. But like two ghosts, the lady from room whatever and another guy, they follow Danny all across the country to Florida, and he puts them in the lock boxes. And I'm just like, how does this work? What's the rule here? Doesn't make no sense. And of course, you have to think, of course, so if these two ghosts came after Danny all this way, then what happened to all the other ghosts in The Shining? You have to think about this. Where are all the other ghosts in The Shining? Because the Overlook Hotel was just this hive of evil spirits, right? And you're telling me after this place burned down, only two ghosts managed to follow Danny Torrance, to haunt him. And it's just, why? Right? And I need to understand what is the hierarchy here when it comes to the villains of these two books, because by the end, it seems that the ghosty people, as Abra puts it, the ghosty people are way stronger than the True Knot. Way stronger, like they overwhelm the True Knot. What was the character? Silent Sally. Like, Silent Sally gets her ass clapped by a ghost that's barely alive. She's famished, and even though that ghost is in such a weak state, she completely overpowers Silent Sally, who is a True Knot, right? And the True Knot are not necessarily people anymore. Okay? And to make matters worse, okay, so we understand that the True Knot, they are a corrupt version of The Shining. They are the Sith Lords of The Shining, right? And they have powers. They absolutely have powers, right? And they should be scary. And they make their camp at the remains of the Overlook Hotel. And there's this really nice quote that evil places attract evil entities or something like that, evil people, right? And I'm just like, where's the logic in that? So the True Knot obviously can see ghosts, right? And ghosts are obviously a threat to the True Knot as they are to everybody else with The Shining. So I'm thinking, is the True Knot really dumb? They're absolutely dumb, because ghosts are the apex predator, apparently, and they make camp at the Overlook Hotel, the remains of the Overlook Hotel, and I'm just like, these people are fucking dumb, right? Something doesn't work here, right? The True Knot ain't right. They're dumb. Because they obviously have The Shining, a corrupt version of The Shining. They can see ghosts, and it's obviously by the end of this book that ghosts are way stronger than the True Knot. The ghost that devours Silent Sally, it just happens just like that, right? And these people make their camp at one of the most evil places in the world because they're attracted to it. Like, it's like lambs to the slaughter. See, the logic here doesn't work. Okay, you have to define the hierarchy of power, right? If the ghosty people are far superior than the True Knot should have just fucked off. But they put their camp at the Overlook Hotel. It just doesn't make any sense, right? But listen, I haven't read every Stephen King book out there. I've read a lot of his major works, right? And this is just my my opinion after reading so much, it seems to me, and you can contradict me, of course, but it seems to me that Stephen King is the type of writer, he has a good idea, he puts it on paper, and that's it. See you later, alligator. It seems to me that he has an idea, he puts it on paper, and he doesn't improve upon it, he doesn't rewrite it, he doesn't elevate it, he doesn't improve upon it, he doesn't enhance it in any way. It's so obvious. Like The Shining itself, this power, this gift, it had so many possibilities, and Stephen King barely scratches the surface. A bit of telepathy and a bit of telekinesis, maybe, right? That's it. You can see some ghosty people, maybe, and that's it. It should have been way more, right? And then you have this cat at the hospital that, the cat that goes to the rooms of people that are about to die, and you think that there's some sort of underlying theme here, and you think that you're gonna get something by the end, and it doesn't really happen. It's just a cat that can sense when people are dying, right? And I was thinking at the beginning, maybe this cat isn't what it seems to be. Maybe Tony is in this cat. Maybe some sort of ghost is in this cat. Who knows? Something crazy. But nothing happens because, of course, we've all heard the stories, that certain animals can sense when people are about to die, in the news. Cats especially, apparently. But he doesn't do anything with this. It's just a little nod to something, it's a cat that can sense when people are about to die, and that's it. There's nothing else, right? Which is a shame, again, right? Again, when it comes to the True Knot, Stephen King fails again, because they're one-dimensional. It is said somewhere in the book, when Babylon was young, the True Knot was old. And you can do something with this. Listen, even Rose the Hat is a bit one-dimensional. She is just this evil bitch that wants revenge on this little girl, right? And her character could have been so developed if Stephen King allowed for a couple of paragraphs of a flashback. Because Rose the Hat is apparently a couple of 100 years old, and I think she comes from Ireland. And maybe you can insert a bit of backstory, a bit of tragedy, how she turned into a True Knot, what happened, right? Something, because back then there were primitive times, insert something to develop this character, because there's really nothing to her, right? She's just this evil hipster with a top hat, and I'm just like, do something with this, Stephen King. And this shows yet again that Stephen King just had this idea and never thought beyond it, right? It's such a damn shame, right? And listen, this book should be read by aspiring writers because it is an example of what you shouldn't do, okay? To all aspiring writers, this is a bit of advice. Just because you have a good idea and put it on paper doesn't mean that you're done. Doesn't mean that you're through as a writer, as a storyteller. You have a good idea, you put it on paper, and then you expand upon it. You have to experiment with every possibility available to you. You can't just leave it at that. Okay? Right? You have to work with it. You have to do something with it. Right? This book could have been so much better if we had more info about the True Knot, about some of the, members of the True Knot. I wish that the True Knot, the members, weren't so goddamn one-dimensional caricatures of hillbillies and rednecks who are so subservient to Rose the Hat like a bunch of puppies. Like, do something. They're lame, right? And this is another thing that I would have loved to see, right? Time and time again, Abra, the little girl, overpowers and outsmarts Rose the Hat, and a couple of members from the True Knot are like, hey, yo, Rose, like, maybe we should stop, bro. This little girl is kicking your ass, bro, right? And of course, Rose, being stubborn, doesn't listen. But this is what I would have wanted. I would have wanted to see, some of the members of the True Knot, thinking and going like, hey, yo, this little girl is beating our boss like it ain't no biggie. Maybe Crow Daddy could have done this. This little girl is beating Rose the Hat like it ain't no nothing, right? Maybe this little girl should be our new leader, boy, right? That would have been interesting, to have a bit of insurrection or rebellion in the True Knot. Somebody saying, a faction maybe going like, hey, yo, this little girl is better than our fucking leader, bro. She's powerful as shit, right? And I was a bit hopeful because by the end, a couple of members of the True Knot, they just bounce. They just flee. They just see that there is no hope for Rose to defeat this little girl, and they just get the hell out of there because otherwise they would have died as well, right? And I would have loved for this faction that escaped to maybe decide to let Abra become their new leader or whatever, right? Something, insert a bit of spice in your story. I would have loved for Stephen King to do this, but he doesn't do it, of course. But I have to say this. There was one moment early on when Stephen King really flexed his muscles, okay? One moment in particular with Dick Hallorann. Because early on, Dick Hallorann tells Danny, little boy Danny, about Dick's, backstory, right? And when Dick Hallorann was a little boy, he was getting abused, by an uncle or whatever. And Stephen King writes it in such a grotesque and monstrous fashion that I felt sick. How Dick Hallorann was abused by a family member, and I was just like, yo, that was scary. The way Dick Hallorann told that story, that was scary as shit. And that is the only moment in the book when Stephen King really flexes his muscles, okay? That shit was scary. But this is something that this is basically a fantasy of mine. Like, there are moments when Danny talks to Dick Hallorann as a ghost. And, they have this conversation. And even in the movie, Danny talks to the dead and they have whatever conversation. And you see, this is just me, but I would have asked, hey, yo, like, how is it like in the afterlife, bro? What's going on there? What's life after death? Stop it with this stupid trivia, this miscellaneous stuff. You need to tell me what's death like, bro, right? Because at one point, Dick Hallorann as a ghost tells Danny that, yo, being here in the real world is painful to me as a ghost or something like that. And I'm just like, okay, that's intriguing. Go on, tell me more. If I were Danny, I would have asked the right questions, right? Fuck the True Knot, they're lame. I want to know about death and what comes after death, right? And this topic really isn't addressed, right? And even, listen, in the movie, at the end, Danny dies and he comes back as a ghost and he talks to Abra, right? And it's this bittersweet moment, whatever. And I would have been like, hey, yo, bro, like, what's life after death? Stop it with this bullshit. I need to know the truth, And what would have been really scary if Danny in the movie as a ghost would have said, hey, we thought death was something, but death is something else, bro. You'll see. We all see, right? Something ominous. I would have loved that, right? Right. And this, again, I have to reiterate this. You have to go beyond the normal with your story. Okay? You have to, ghosty people, right? Ghosty people. That's not scary. I understand that Abra is a little kid and, you gotta do something with all of this, And this is, again, the main the main thing, right? In The Shining, the ghosts don't really do anything to get little boy Danny Torrance. They have to influence and manipulate his father, Jack Torrance. Why is that? Right? Right? Is it because Danny was a child and his powers were so pure and strong that if scared he would have destroyed everything? You have to, right? You have to develop this. Of course, all of this happens for plot convenience, of course, but you have to set some ground rules, otherwise nothing really makes sense, right? Right? And again, in Dr. Sleep, because Abra is so super goddamn powerful, like, she shouldn't be scared of anything. Like, this is how kids are. Like, I don't understand at points why she is so afraid, because she's super duper powerful. Like, she is on another level, God mode, right? She would have, right? She shouldn't be afraid of ghost people. She shouldn't be afraid of the True Knot. She shouldn't be afraid of anything. Why? Why is she afraid? She can just destroy everything. That's how powerful she is, right? And again, because Abra is so arrogant and prideful and succumbs to her own power, and she taunts Rose over and over again, there should have been consequences for that. There is a section of her personality that is extremely questionable, right? She has a really dark side to her, and it's not really addressed. Nobody corrects her. Nobody reprimands her. Again, right? There is absolutely no consequence because of this. And I think this will be the last topic. This book is called Dr. Sleep. Danny Torrance, as an adult, he goes to these hospices and he kind of helps these old people pass on, right? And, I understand it is interesting, but that's about it with this. Like, this is what Danny does as a job, and it's barely touched upon. Again, it's not developed. He just, when somebody's about to die, the cat comes in, somebody gives Danny a call, he comes, he holds their hands, and they die. And I'm just like, think of the missed opportunity here. These people who are dying, they could have told Danny certain things. They could have had extremely deep conversations about everything, and it doesn't really happen. And this, this duty of his to help people die, I mean, there are so many angles to this. So many angles, so many possibilities, and Stephen King, again, does nothing with it. It's still just the bare foundation of something that could have been marvelous, right? Dr. Sleep is a goddamn cool title, but in essence, it's kind of plain. It's kind of dull, what Danny does. It could have been special. It could have been amazing. It could have been dark, sinister, existential dread, something with the cat as well. But nothing really comes out of this. Nothing at all. Right? But I think that's about it. I had extremely high expectations, and after reading Dr. Sleep, I wanted to read The Shining, because I think The Shining is a far superior novel, right? But that's about it. If you want to support your boy, if you enjoy this content, I got a few books on Amazon. The link will be down below. Thanks for watching, keep on reading, and see ya.